Good day, everyone. Do you ever wonder how our politicians learn their way on leading our country? Hi, I'm Jessna Lopez together with my groupmates, and we are here to discuss to you some of our famous philosophers such as Thomas Hobbes, John Stuart Mill, Karl Marx, and Plato. So first, let's talk about John Stuart Mill.
Hi, my name is Davey J. Guzman Feliciano. I'm reporting regarding John Stuart Mill's biography. John Stuart Mill is born on May 20, 1806, and he's from London, England. And he died May 8, 1873, from Avignon, France. He's an English philosopher, economist, and exponent of utilitarianism. He was prominent as a publicist in the reforming age of the 19th century and remains of lasting interest as a logician and an ethical theorist. His early life and career, he has an eldest son of the British historian, economist, and philosopher James Mill. He was born in his father's house in Pentonville, London. He was educated exclusively by his father, who was a strict disciplinarian. By his 8th year, he had read in the original Greek Aesop's fables, Xenophon's Anabasis, and the whole of the historian Herodotus. He was acquainted with the satirist Lucian, the historian of philosophy Diogenes Laertius, and the Athenian writer and educational theorist Isocrates, and 6 dialogues of Plato. He had also read a great deal of history in English. At the age of 8, he started Latin, the geometry of Euclid, and algebra, and began to teach the younger children of the family. His main reading was still history, but he went through all the Latin and Greek authors commonly read in the schools and universities, and by the age of 10, he could read Plato and the Athenian statesman Demosthenes with ease. At about the age of 12, he began a thorough study of scholastic logic, at the same time reading Aristotle's logical Treatises in the original. In the following year, he was introduced to political economy and studied the work of the Scottish political economist and philosopher Adam Smith and that of the English economist David Ricardo. While the training the younger Mill received has aroused amazement and criticism, its most important aspect was the close association it fostered with strenuous character and vigorous intellect of his father. From his earliest days, he spent much time in his father's study and habitually accompanied him on his walks. He thus inevitably acquired many of his father's speculative opinions and his father's way of defending them. But he did not receive the empress passively and mechanically. The duty of collecting and weighing evidence for himself was at every turn impressed upon the boy. His childhood was not unhappy, but it was a strain on his constitution, and he suffered from lack of natural, unforced development. From May 1820 until July 1821, Mill was in France with his family of Sir Samuel Betham, brother of Jeremy Betham, the English utilitarian philosopher, economist, and theoretical jurist. Copious extract from a diary kept at this time show how methodically he read and wrote, studied chemistry and botany, tackled advanced mathematical problems, and made notes on the scenery and the people and customs of the country. He also gained a thorough acquaintance with the French language. On his return in 1821, he added to his work the study of psychology and of Roman law, which he read with John Austin, his father, having half decided on the bar as the best profession open to him. This intention, however, was abandoned, and in 1823, when he had just completed his 17th year, he entered the examiner's office of the India House. After a short probation, he was promoted in 1828 to assistant examiner for 20 years from 1836 when his father died to 1856. Mill had charge of the British East India Company's relation with the Indian states, and in 1856 he became chief of the examiner's office. In 1822, Mill had read P.E.L. Dumont's exposition of Bentham's doctrines in the Treatise de Legislation, which made a lasting impression upon him. The impression was confronted by the study of English psychologists and also of the two 18th century French philosophers, Etienne Bonnot de Condillac, who was also a psychologist, and Claude Adrien Helvetius, who was noted for his emphasis on physical sensations. Soon after, in 1822 to 23, Mill established among a few friends the Utilitarian Society, taking the word as he tells us from Annals of the Parish, a novel of Scottish country life by John Galt. Two newspapers welcomed his contribution: The Traveller, edited by a friend of Bentham's, and The Morning Chronicle, edited by his father friend John Black. One of his first efforts was a solid argument for freedom and discussion in a series of letters to the Chronicle on the prosecution of Richard Carlile, a 19th century English radical and free thinker. Mill seized every chance for exposing departures from sound principle to Parliament and courts of justice. Another outlet was opened up for him in April 1824, while the founding of the Westminster Review, which was the organ of the philosophical radicals, in 1825. He began work on an edition of Bentham's Rational of the Judicial Evidence, 5 volumes, 1827. He took part eagerly in discussion with many individuals of distinction who came to his father's house and engaged in set discussions at a reading society formed at the home of English historian George Grote in 1825, and in debates at the London Debating Society formed in the same year. Thank you. Now I'll pass this on to my next groupmate.
Hello, my name is Nathaniel Ugalde, and I will be discussing Karl Marx's biography. Karl Marx, a renowned philosopher, economist, and political theorist, was born on May 5, 1818, in Trier, Germany. His life's work has had a profound impact on modern political thought and has shaped ideologies that have shaped societies around the world. Now we move on to the visuals of Karl Marx's political activities. Marx's groundbreaking work, The Communist Manifesto, co-authored with Friedrich Engels, was published in 1848. It called for the overthrow of capitalism and the establishment of a classless society based on the principles of communism. This seminal work laid the foundation for Marxist theory and became a defining text of modern socialism. Throughout his life, Marx sought to analyze and critique the socio-economic structures of his time. He developed the concept of historical materialism, which argued that societal development is driven by the struggle between social classes, with the popular proletariat and bourgeoisie being the key actors. Marx's most famous work, Das Kapital, published in 1867, expanded on his own economic theories and analyzed the contradictions of capitalism, including exploitation of labor and unequal distribution of wealth. This monumental work remains a cornerstone of Marxist economic and social theory. Despite facing financial struggles and political challenges throughout his life, Marx continued to advocate for his revolutionary change in social justice. His ideas have inspired and influenced political movements and leaders around the world, shaping the course of modern history. Karl Marx's legacy as a thinker, philosopher, and revolutionary continues to be a subject of scholarly study and debate. His ideas on class struggle, historical materialism, and communism have left a lasting impact on politics, economics, and social theory, making him one of the most influential figures in modern history. And that's the biography of Karl Marx, a visionary thinker and revolutionary whose ideas continue to shape and influence our understanding of society and economics to this day.
Thank you, Nathan Ugalde, for the wonderful reporting about biography of Karl Marx. It's now proceed the contribution of Karl Marx. Ako nga pala si Kyle David Membela. I will tackle about the contribution of Karl Marx. Marx was inspired by classical political economists such as Adam Smith and David Ricardo. First is labor theory of value. Like the other classical economists, Karl Marx believed in a labor theory of value or LTV to explain relative differences in market prices. In other words, if a table takes twice as long as a chair, then the table should be considered twice as value. Historical materialism. Another important theory developed by Karl Marx is known as historical materialism. This theory posits that society at any given point in time is ordered by the type of technology used in the process of production. Marx written works during his lifetime. Karl Marx wrote and published no less than least 15 complete multi-volume books, along with numerous pamphlets, articles, and essays. Perhaps most famous works, the Communist Manifesto, summarized Marx and Engels' theories about the nature of society and politics and is an attempt to explain the goals of Marxism and later socialism. When writing the Communist Manifesto, Marx and Engels explained how they thought capitalism was unsustainable and how the capitalistic society that existed at the time of their writing would eventually be replaced by one. Marx's work laid the foundation for future communist leaders such as Vladimir Lenin and Joseph Stalin, operating from the premise that capitalism contained the seed of its own destruction. His ideas formed the basis of Marxism and served as a theoretical base for communism. Very few Western thinkers embraced Marxism after 1898. Marx understood that it was far more productive than previous or alternative economic system. He believed all countries should become capitalist and develop that productive capacity, and then workers would naturally revolt, leading communism, whereby the workers would become the dominant social class and collectively control the means of production. And that is the contribution of Karl Marx, and peace.
Now I'm here to talk about Plato. So Plato was an ancient Greek philosopher born in Athens during the classical period in ancient Greece. In Athens, Plato founded the Academy, a philosophical school where he taught the philosophical doctrines that would later become known as Platonism. So Plato, or Platon, was a pen name derived apparently from the nickname given to him by his wrestling coach, allegedly a reference to his physical broadness, meaning best reputation. However, modern scholars are divided on the reliability of this claim. According to Alexander of Miletus, quoted by Diogenes of Sinope, his actual name was Aristocles, son of Ariston of the deme of Calytus. Little is known about Plato's early life and education. He belonged to an aristocratic and influential family. The exact time and place of Plato's birth are unknown. Based on ancient sources, most modern scholars believe that he was born in Athens or Aegina between 428 and 423 BC. Plato gives little biographical information about himself in his works, but refers at various points to some of his relatives with a great degree of precision, including his brothers, Adeimantus and Glaucon. In the Plato's Republic, these and other references enable us to reconstruct Plato's family tree. Plato may have traveled in Italy, Sicily, Egypt, and Cyrene. But at the age of 40, Plato founded a school of philosophy in Athens, the Academy, on a plot of land in the grove of Hecademus or Academus, named after Academus, an Attic hero in Greek mythology. The Academy operated until it was destroyed by Lucius Cornelius Sulla in 84 BC. Many philosophers studied at the Academy, the most prominent of these being Aristotle. According to Diogenes Laertius, throughout his later life, Plato became entangled with the politics of the city of Syracuse, where he attempted to replace the tyrant Dionysius with Dionysius' brother-in-law, Dion or Syracuse, whom Plato had recruited as one of his followers. But the tyrant himself turned against Plato. Plato almost faced death, but he was sold into slavery. Aniceris and Cyrenaic philosophers subsequently bought Plato's freedom for 20 minas and sent him home. After Dionysius' death, according to Plato's seventh letter, Dion requested Plato to return to Syracuse to tutor Dionysius II, who seemed to accept Plato's teachings but eventually became suspicious of their motives, expelling Dion and holding Plato against his will. Eventually, Plato left, and Syracuse and Dion would return to overthrow Dionysius and rule Syracuse. Disciple of Plato. A variety of sources have given accounts of Plato's death. One story, based on a mutilated manuscript, suggests Plato died in his bed, whilst a young Thracian girl played the flute to him. Another tradition suggests Plato died at a wedding feast. The account is based on Diogenes Laertius' reference to an account by Hermippus, a 3rd century Alexandrian. According to Tertullian, Plato simply died in his sleep.
Contributions of Plato. I am the wisest man alive, for I know one thing, and that is that I know nothing. This is a famous quote from Plato, but I bet we will all agree that this man has contributed a great deal of knowledge to the world. He is even hailed as one of the founders of Western philosophy, science, and religion, and his works, along with those of Socrates, his teacher, and Aristotle, his student. First of his great contributions to the world is his theory of form, or theory of ideas, which is a belief that the material world, as it appears, is only an image or copy of the real world. Second, Plato's best-known work is The Republic, that primarily explored the concept of justice. Through written conversation between 6 men, Plato attempts to establish, in the philosophical sense, an ideal state that would serve as a template for all existing and emerging societies. He says that a good community is one which abides by the 4 Grecian virtues: wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice. Among these, Plato reasons justice is the most important. Plato divided justice into 2 types. Individual justice is when a person is able to serve his needs according to his virtue, spirit, and appetite. Then he would be satisfied. Now, the second type is social justice, wherein a man should fulfill his duty in the society. He also classified the people in his ideal state, namely philosopher kings or guardians. These are the wisest in the state. The next one is the soldiers. Soldiers are the class that are physically, emotionally, and spiritually stable to protect the state. And the last class are the producers, who are known as the laborers who make goods and provide services in the society. And lastly, Plato founded the Academy. It was not a formal school or college, but a more informal society of intellectuals who shared common interests in studying subjects such as philosophy, mathematics, and astronomy. Plato believed that knowledge was not purely the result of inner reflection, but instead could be sought through observation and therefore taught to others, which is why the academy was established. So, to end this section, here is a quote from Plato: "If a man neglects education, he walks lame to the end of his life."
Thomas Hobbes was an English philosopher and is best known for his 1651 book of Leviathan, in which he expounds an influential formulation of social contract theory. Thomas Hobbes was born on April 5, 1588 in Westport, now part of Malmesbury in Wiltshire, England. Having been born prematurely when his mother heard of the coming invasion of South Spanish Armada, Hobbes later reported that my mother gave birth to twins, myself in my fear. Although Thomas Hobbes' childhood is unknown to a large extent, as his mother's name, it is known that Hobbes' father, Thomas Sr., was the vicar of both Charlton and Westport. Hobbes' father was uneducated according to John Aubrey. Hobbes Jr. was educated at Westport Church from age 4, passed to the Malmesbury School, and then to a private school kept by a young man named Robert Latimer, a graduate of the University of Oxford. Hobbes was a good pupil, and between 1601 and 1602, he went up to Magdalen Hall, the predecessor to Hertford College, Oxford, where he was taught scholastic logic and mathematics. The principal, John Wilkinson, was a Puritan and had some influence on Thomas Hobbes. At the university, Thomas Hobbes appeared to have followed his own curriculum as he was little attracted by the scholastic learning. Leaving Oxford, Hobbes completed his BA degree by incorporation at St. John's College, Cambridge in 1608. He became a tutor and secretary to William Cavendish, 1st Duke of Devonshire, and his son, the 3rd Duke of Devonshire. It was to this William Cavendish that Hobbes dedicated his Elements of Law. Hobbes became a companion to the younger William Cavendish, and they both took part in a grand tour of Europe between 1610 and 1615. For the next 7 years, he expanded his own knowledge of philosophy, awakening in him curiosity over key philosophic debates. Hobbes was exposed to European scientific and critical method during the tour, in contrast to the scholastic philosophy that he had learned in Oxford. He once said, "Government is necessary, not because man is naturally bad, but because man is by nature more individualistic than social." Close quote. Thomas Hobbes never married, dedicating his entire life as philosopher. On October 1679, Hobbes suffered a bladder disorder and then paralytic stroke, from which he died on December 4, 1679 at age 91 at Hardwick Hall, owned by the Cavendish family.
Ang Leviathan ay isang sikat na political treatise na sinulat ni Thomas Hobbes noong 1651.
Ang aklat ay nangangatwiran para sa pangangailangan ng isang malakas na sentral na pamahalaan upang mapanatili ang kaayusan at maiwasan ang kaguluhan na maaaring magmula sa kalikasan ng tao.
Para kay Hobbes, ang estado ng kalikasan ay magulo at marahas na lugar na kung saan ang buhay ay nag-iisa, magulo, makukulit, malulupit, at maikli. Naniniwala siya na walang anumang uri ng panlabas ng otoridad na magpapatupad ng mga patakaran at maiwasan ang salungatan.
Ang mga tao ay patuloy na nakikipagdigma sa isa't isa na humahantong sa isang walang hanggang estado ng karahasan at kawalan ng kapanatagan. Isip ni Hobbes na mga individual ay dapat sumang-ayon sa isang kontratang panlipunan kung saan sinusuko nila ang ilan sa kanilang mga kalayaan sa isang pinakamataas na kapangyarihan bilang kapalit ng seguridad at proteksyon na ibinibigay ng pamahalaan. Naniniwala si Hobbes na ang isang malakas na sentral ng pamahalaan ay kinakailangan upang mapanatili ang kaayusan ng lipunan at maiwasan ang anarkiya na iiral sa isang estado ng kalikasan.
Number 1, si Thomas Hobbes ay pinanganak na premature. Number 2, si Thomas Hobbes ay naniniwala na kapag walang strong government, ang buhay ay masalimuot. Inamo niya ang kapwa philosopher na si Reggielyn R sa isang restaurant match. Ngunit hindi kalaunan ito ay umatras na nalaman ang kanyang edad at ang kanyang katalinuhan. 4, pinagkamalan siyang atheist. Ngunit siya naman talaga ay naniniwala sa Diyos. 5, siya ay naniniwala na ang tao ay likas na makasarili. At ang pang-anim, sa kabila ng malulungkot na pananaw sa buhay, siya ay may kakayahang magpatawa sa matalinong paraan. At ang pang-7, siya ay takot sa multo. Siya pa nga ay nagdadala ng kanyang punyel sa ilalim ng kanyang unan bilang proteksyon. Si Hobbes ay isang matalik na kaibigan ni Prince Charles na nakatulong para mahubog ang pampolitikang teorya. Ang pang-siyam, ang Leviathan ay sinulat niya noong 1651 sa gitna ng English Civil War. At ang panghuli at ang ika-10, ang kanyang social contact theory ay nagagamit sa filosofiya at pampolitika hanggang ngayon. Opo, si Eugenio Sucia at yan ang aking parte sa dokumentaryo patungkol kay Thomas Hobbes.
So you already watch and learn who are the philosophers and their contribution when it comes to our politics. So again, we are the group 1 and I hope that you like and subscribe this video for more updates about Western political philosophers. So, peace out.